The haunting subway uncovering the secret rules of passage. My apartment looked exactly like you'd expect from a cop who spent more time at the precinct than at home. The wallpaper peeled at the corners, the carpet was a dirty gray that might have been blue once, and the smell of mildew suggested the plumbing was ancient. It wasn't much, but it was my refuge from the chaos of New York City, my own rundown castle. One lazy Sunday afternoon, as the city sizzled under the August sun, I stood in my small bathroom, staring at my reflection in the faded mirror. I needed to shave. My beard was a rough map of a stressful week. As I nudged the mirror for a better angle, it shifted slightly, revealing a corner of yellowed paper tucked behind it. Curious, I pried the mirror further open. It creaked in protest, the sound sharp in the quiet apartment. Behind it, I found an envelope, the paper thin and brittle. Written on the front in a hurried scrawl was "Rules of Passage." My brow furrowed. My first thought was a prank, some twisted joke by a fellow officer or a friend. But as I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside, the list of rules I found was anything but ordinary. Do not make eye contact. Do not speak to them. Never carry more than can fit in your pockets. Do not take what is not dropped. Ignore all pleas for help. Do not eat or drink anything. Avoid the man in the conductor's uniform. Never go beyond the last platform. Never board the train. If you wish to leave, you must jump in front of the train. I read through the list twice, then a third time. My first reaction was disbelief, mixed with an uneasy chuckle. It had to be a joke, a bizarre, detailed, and somewhat creepy joke. I imagined my buddy Rick's laughter when I'd confessed to being spooked, the precinct's break room echoing with hoots and hollers. Shaking my head, I placed the letter on the bathroom counter, noting the lack of dust around the mirror. Odd, given my poor cleaning habits. The rules were nonsensical, yet oddly specific. Avoid the man in the conductor's uniform? Never board the train? It read like a bad movie script. The practical part of me wanted to crumple the paper up and forget it ever existed. Yet something nagged at me, a whisper of curiosity or maybe the instinct honed by years on the force telling me not to dismiss it outright. With a resigned sigh, I tucked the letter into my jacket pocket, figuring it might make for an amusing story to share with Rick the next day. As I reset the mirror, my reflection stared back at me with a hint of caution, as if the tired eyes looking back at me also whispered, "Be careful." I left the bathroom, the letter's words echoing in my mind. It was just a prank, I reassured myself. But as the city outside buzzed and the shadows in my apartment deepened with the setting sun, the list of rules felt more like a warning than a joke. And deep down, as the evening crept over New York, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken a turn. A week had passed since I discovered the strange list of rules behind my bathroom mirror. Each day, the letter's presence gnawed at me, an itch in the back of my mind that wouldn't go away. The rules haunted my thoughts, whispering through my daily routines, disturbing my sleep. Finally, unable to stop my growing obsession, I decided to investigate. It was late, the kind of late that blanketed the city in deep, uneasy quiet. I stood before my bathroom mirror, the letter in hand, rereading each rule as if trying to decode a secret message hidden in plain sight. With a deep breath, I gripped the edges of the mirror and pulled. The mirror gave way with a groan, revealing not just the wall behind it, but an opening. A dark, elongated tunnel that seemed to stretch into an impossible nothingness. Curiosity, sharp and demanding, overtook my hesitation. Flashlight in hand, I stepped into the tunnel. The air was cool and damp, the walls rough and encrusted with what looked like centuries of grime. I walked for what felt like miles, the beam of my flashlight a small, brave spot of light against the overwhelming dark. Suddenly, the tunnel ended, and I stepped out onto a platform. I blinked in astonishment. Before me lay a subway station, seemingly ripped from the 1940s. It was perfectly preserved, as if it were still in use. Advertisements for victory bonds adorned the walls, and the scent of old, dry wood mixed with a faint trace of tobacco smoke, hung in the air. My footsteps echoed on the stone platform as I moved cautiously forward. The station was eerily quiet. No announcements, no clattering of trains. Then I saw them. People, or rather, figures that resembled people, each dressed in period attire, their faces blurred and indistinct, going about their business as if I wasn't there. I remembered the first rule: do not make eye contact. Lowering my gaze, I observed them from the corners of my eyes. They didn't speak or interact with me. They seemed completely unaware of my presence. Phantoms of a bygone era caught in a loop of routine. A sudden chill made me shiver, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me. As I ventured deeper into the station, I recalled the second rule: do not speak to them. I bit my tongue as a spectral old man nearly bumped into me, muttering apologies to no one as he shuffled past, newspaper under arm. My attention then shifted to a figure distinct from the rest pacing the platform. It was a man in a conductor's uniform, his face harsh and creased with what looked like perpetual anger. The uniform was impeccable, the buttons polished to a shine, and his cap pulled low over his brow. As I watched, the conductor stopped and surveyed the platform with a scowl, his eyes seeming to look right through the spectral passengers. I kept my distance, observing the conductor's routine, noting his paths and stops. The longer I stayed, the more the place felt suffocating, a strange pressure building in my ears. Remembering the final rule, I knew it was time to leave. I couldn't risk getting trapped here. I turned towards the tunnel, then hesitated. On the ground near where I had appeared was a handful of coins, old and tarnished. Do not take what is not dropped. The rule echoed in my mind. These were dropped, so it must be fine, right? I picked them up, rationalizing that it was worth the risk for proof that I wasn't hallucinating. With one last wary glance at the stern-faced conductor, I turned back to the tunnel to realize it was sealed. I placed my hand on the wall and felt nothing but cold, unyielding stone. I remembered what I had to do and scanned the scene until I saw a track with a train only beginning to take off. It accelerated at an impossible rate, but I was able to make it to the edge of the platform just in time. I jumped in front of the phantom machine that made no sound as it raced towards me. Closing my eyes at the last moment, I braced for impact, only to find myself tumbling onto the cold, hard tiles of my bathroom floor. Gasping for air, clutching the coins in my fist, I lay there for a moment, the reality of my apartment crashing back around me. I had escaped the station, but the station hadn't quite left me. As I stood, shaky and disoriented, the weight of the coins in my hand was a solid, undeniable confirmation of the night's reality. The portal was real. The rules were real. And I had a fist full of evidence. The first trip through the mirror tunnel left me both excited and terrified. The coins I'd pocketed, a handful of pre-World War II nickels and dimes, were real proof of my unbelievable journey. As morning light seeped through the grimy windows of my apartment, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the events of the night replaying in my mind like a looped film reel. Determined to understand the value of my find, I decided to visit a local antique shop, known for its collection of coins and historical memorabilia. The small bell above the door jingled as I entered, the musty smell of old books and rust greeting me. The shopkeeper, a stooped old man with thick glasses perched on his nose, looked up from his newspaper as I approached the counter. "Can I help you?" the shopkeeper asked, eyeing my nervous demeanor. "I found these in my grandfather's attic," I lied smoothly, placing the coins on the counter. "Wondered if they might be worth anything." The shopkeeper picked up a coin, his eyes narrowing as he examined it. Pre-war coins. Quite a nice find indeed." He tested each coin with a small magnifying glass, then looked up at me, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "Not something you see every day. Where did you say you found them?" "My grandfather's attic. He was a bit of a collector," I repeated, maintaining my facade of casual disinterest. After a few minutes of haggling, I walked out of the shop with a substantial amount of cash, much more than I had anticipated. The weight of the money in my pocket felt like a burning promise of potential. However, before I made it out the door, the shop owner said something that stuck in the back of my mind. A word of caution, the shopkeeper said, his eyes glancing briefly at the coins once more. These coins may hold more value than just their age. Be careful with things you don't fully understand. The warning played in my head for the next few days, but it did little to quench my growing obsession.
The head in the wall was mummified in its plastic shroud, a decayed, crusted face frozen in a scream. The eyes, now empty sockets, seemed to follow Sam as he stumbled back, his flashlight trembling in his hand. The old house, abandoned for decades, held more secrets than he had ever imagined. He had come here looking for clues about his family's past, but this was beyond anything he had prepared for. Sam's breath came in short, panic bursts. He forced himself to look away from the ghastly sight and focus on his surroundings. The room was small, cluttered with old furniture covered in white sheets, the floor thick with dust. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling like ghostly drapes. He had to find out who this person was and why their head was hidden in the wall of his ancestral home. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "Get it together, Sam," he muttered to himself. He scanned the room for anything that might provide a clue. There, on an old wooden desk, was a stack of yellowed papers. He approached cautiously, his flashlight casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The papers were brittle, threatening to crumble at his touch. They appeared to be letters, written in a delicate, looping script. Sam's eyes widened as he recognized the handwriting. It belonged to his great-grandmother, Margaret. He carefully picked up the top letter and began to read. "My dearest William, the days grow darker, and the nights colder without you here. The children ask about you daily, their innocent eyes filled with hope. How I wish I could tell them you will return soon. But we both know the dangers that lurk in the shadows of this cursed house. I fear for our safety. Strange noises echo through the halls at night, and I feel a presence watching us. The servants have abandoned us, claiming to see apparitions and hear whispers from the walls. I dare not tell the children, but I fear the house itself is alive, feeding on our fears and sorrows. Please, my love, come home soon. We need you. Yours forever, Margaret." Sam's heart pounded in his chest. What had his great-grandmother experienced in this house? He sifted through the letters, finding more tales of strange occurrences, whispered fears, and desperate pleas. The more he read, the more he felt a chill creeping up his spine. One letter stood out, dated just days before Margaret's death. "William, I cannot bear it any longer. The shadows move on their own, and I hear voices calling my name from the walls. The children are terrified, and I am at my wit's end. I have decided to take them to my sister's house in the city. We must leave this place before it consumes us all. If you receive this letter, do not come to the house. Meet us in the city, where we will be safe. Margaret." Margaret never made it to her sister's house. She and her children disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only these haunting letters in the cursed house. Sam's curiosity burned brighter than his fear. He had to uncover the truth. He continued to explore the house, each room revealing more unsettling clues. In the attic, he found a dusty old trunk filled with family heirlooms. Among the keepsakes was a small, ornate box. He opened it to find a locket with a faded photograph of a young woman, Margaret. Beneath the locket was a folded piece of paper. Unfolding it carefully, Sam discovered a map of the house, marked with strange symbols and notes in the margins. It seemed to indicate hidden passages and secret rooms. His pulse quickened. This was the key to unlocking the house's secrets. Following the map, Sam navigated the labyrinthine corridors and hidden staircases. He found himself in a part of the house he had never seen before. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. He approached a door marked with an ominous symbol, a circle with a slash through it. Taking a deep breath, Sam pushed the door open. The room beyond was dark, but his flashlight revealed walls lined with shelves of old books and jars filled with strange, preserved specimens. In the center of the room was a large, ornate mirror. As he approached, he noticed something written in a dark, reddish substance on the glass. "The truth lies within." Sam's reflection stared back at him, eyes wide with fear and determination. He reached out and touched the mirror, expecting it to be solid. Instead, his hand passed through the surface as if it were water. Without hesitation, he stepped through. He found himself in a small, dimly lit chamber. The walls were covered in more of the strange symbols from the map. In the center of the room was a pedestal with a book resting on it. The book was bound in dark leather, its cover adorned with an intricate design that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. He opened the book and began to read. It was a journal, written by someone named Elias Blackwood. The entries detailed dark rituals and forbidden knowledge, as well as experiments conducted within the house. Sam's blood ran cold as he realized the extent of the horrors that had taken place here. Elias had been obsessed with unlocking the secrets of life and death and had used his own family as subjects in his experiments. The journal spoke of a ritual to achieve immortality, one that required a human sacrifice. Sam felt sick to his stomach. Could the mummified head in the wall be one of Elias's victims? As he read on, he discovered that the ritual had gone horribly wrong. Instead of granting immortality, it had trapped the souls of the participants within the house, binding them to its walls and floors. Elias had gone mad, eventually sealing himself in the chamber to escape the vengeful spirits. Sam knew he had to find a way to break the curse and free the trapped souls. The journal mentioned a counter-ritual, one that could only be performed by a blood relative of Elias. Sam realized with the start that he was the key. He was Elias's descendant. Determined to end the suffering, Sam gathered the necessary items for the ritual. He needed to perform it in the heart of the house, where the original ritual had taken place. Following the journal's instructions, he made his way to the basement, where he found a large, circular room adorned with ancient runes and symbols. He set up the ritual items: a dagger, candles, and a bowl of sacred herbs. As he began to chant the incantation, the air grew heavy with a palpable energy. The walls seemed to pulse and breathe, and he could hear faint whispers all around him. Suddenly, the mummified head from the wall appeared before him, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. Sam's heart raced, but he continued the chant, his voice growing stronger with each word. The ground beneath him trembled, and a blinding light filled the room. When the light faded, Sam found himself standing in the basement, but the oppressive atmosphere was gone. The house felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. The mummified head was nowhere to be seen, and he knew that the trapped souls had been freed. Exhausted but relieved, Sam made his way back upstairs. The house, though still old and worn, no longer felt haunted. He left the house, the journal in hand, and vowed to ensure that his family's history would never be forgotten. As he walked away, the sun began to rise, casting a warm, golden light on the old house, now finally at peace. Sam's journey into the depths of his family's dark past had come to an end, but the experience had changed him forever. He had faced unimaginable horrors and uncovered secrets that had been buried for generations. But more importantly, he had found a way to break the cycle of suffering and bring peace to the restless souls that had haunted his ancestral home. As he drove away from the house, he couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The mystery of his great-grandmother's disappearance had been solved, and the curse that had plagued his family for so long had been lifted. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face whatever came his way. In the months that followed, Sam dedicated himself to preserving his family's history. He donated the journal and the letters to a local museum, ensuring that the story of Elias Blackwood and the cursed house would be remembered. He also began writing a book, detailing his own experiences and the harrowing journey he had undertaken to uncover the truth. The house itself remained standing, a silent witness to the events that had transpired within its walls. But now, it was no longer a place of fear and darkness. It had become a symbol of resilience and redemption, a testament to the power of courage and determination. Sam's life slowly returned to normal, but he never forgot the lessons he had learned. He understood the importance of confronting the past, no matter how painful or terrifying it might be. And he knew that, in the end, it was only by facing our fears that we could truly find peace. Years later, as he stood before the house one last time, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been necessary. He had discovered not only the truth about his family, but also a deeper understanding of himself. With a final look at the house, Sam turned and walked away, knowing that he had finally laid the ghosts of the past to rest. The old house, now bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, stood as a silent guardian of the secrets it had once held, its walls no longer echoing with the cries of the lost. Sam drove back to his new home, feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment. The journey had been harrowing, but it had also been a transformative experience. He had not only freed the trapped souls but had also come to terms with his family's dark legacy. In the months that followed, Sam's life took on a new purpose. He continued his research into the occult and the supernatural, determined to help others who might be facing similar horrors. He started a blog, sharing his experiences and offering advice to those dealing with haunted houses or mysterious family histories. His story garnered attention, and soon he was invited to speak at conferences and write articles for paranormal magazines. People from all over the world reached out to him, sharing their own tales of hauntings and seeking his guidance. Sam found that by helping others, he was able to further heal from his own traumatic experiences. One day, while sifting through his emails, Sam received a message from a historian named Dr. Evelyn Parker. She had come across his blog and was fascinated by his story. She invited him to collaborate on a book that would delve deeper into the history of the Blackwood family and the mysterious house. Intrigued, Sam agreed. He and Dr. Parker spent months researching and covering even more about Elias Blackwood's dark experiment and the history of the house. They discovered that Elias had been part of a secret society dedicated to the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, and that his obsession with immortality had ultimately led to his downfall. Their book, The Blackwood Legacy: A History of Horror and Redemption, became a bestseller. It not only recounted the chilling events that Sam had experienced, but also explored the broader context of Elias's life and the impact of his actions on subsequent generations. The book was praised for its meticulous research and gripping narrative, and it solidified Sam's reputation as a leading expert on the paranormal. Despite his newfound fame, Sam remained humble. He continued to offer support and guidance to those in need, never forgetting the fear and desperation he had felt when he first encountered the mummified head in the wall. He knew that his work was far from over and that there were still many mysteries to uncover and spirits to set free. As the years passed, Sam's life was filled with adventure and discovery. He traveled to haunted locations around the world, investigating reports of paranormal activity and helping to bring peace to tormented souls. His encounters with the supernatural deepened his understanding of the world beyond and strengthened his resolve to make a difference. Through it all, Sam never lost sight of the importance of family. He remained close to his relatives, sharing his stories and ensuring that the younger generations understood the significance of their heritage. He took comfort in knowing that the curse that had once plagued his family had been lifted, and that they could now look to the future with hope and optimism. One summer, Sam decided to return to the old house one last time. He felt it was important to pay his respects and to see for himself how the place had changed. As he walked through the now empty rooms, he was struck by the silence and the sense of calm that had replaced the oppressive atmosphere. In the attic, he found the old trunk where he had discovered Margaret's letters. He carefully opened it, feeling a wave of nostalgia as he looked at the family heirlooms inside. Among the keepsakes was the locket with Margaret's photograph. He held it in his hand, thinking about the woman who had endured so much and whose courage had inspired him. As he stood there, lost in thought, he heard a soft voice behind him. He turned to see a figure standing in the doorway. It was Margaret, her face serene and her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Sam," she said softly. "You have given us peace." Sam felt a lump in his throat as he nodded. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "Your letters led me to the truth." Margaret smiled, and for a moment, Sam felt a warm, comforting presence envelop him. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she was gone, leaving him alone in the attic. He took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure. The past had finally been laid to rest, and the spirits of his ancestors were at peace. As he left the house for the last time, he knew that he had fulfilled his purpose. Sam's journey had begun with a terrifying discovery. It had led him to uncover dark secrets and face unimaginable horrors. But it had also brought him strength, understanding, and a renewed sense of purpose. He had transformed from a curious investigator to a guardian of the past, ensuring that the stories of those who had suffered were never forgotten. Driving away from the house, Sam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had faced his fears, uncovered the truth, and brought peace to his family. And in doing so, he had found his own place in the world, a place where he could continue to make a difference and help others find the peace they sought. The road ahead was still filled with mysteries, but Sam was ready to face them. With the knowledge he had gained and the strength he had found within himself, he knew that he could handle whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey was far from over, but he was no longer afraid. He had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, and he was ready to continue his quest for truth and justice. As the sun set behind him, casting long shadows on the road, Sam drove on, his heart light and his spirit unbroken. He had become a beacon of hope for others, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a way to find the light. And with each new day, he continued to honor the legacy of his family, ensuring that their story would be remembered for generations to come. In the end, Sam's journey was not just about uncovering the past. It was about finding his own path and discovering the strength within himself to overcome any obstacle. He had become more than just a seeker of truth. He had become a symbol of resilience and hope, a testament to the power of the human spirit. And as he drove into the future, he knew that he would always carry with him the lessons he had learned and the memories of those who had guided him along the way.